Hey, what's up guys, it's Oakley, and we're back playing some Warhammer 2 online battles. I've been playing a fair amount of quick battles as of late, inspired by the Everchose online tournament. Decided to get back into some quick battles and try some different builds. So this one is going to be a build that I came up with recently called the Hellblaster Gryph build. And essentially it fields you as the Empire, so it's an interesting pick where you're a little bit more centralized of an army. You go a bit more elite. But the core of it is you bring a Hellblaster, so pretty good range, huge armor piercing, devastating blows. So that's going to be your centerpiece, and it's meant to take out anything of high value that's coming at you from the enemy side. So you're going to want to target this at, not Orc Boys, but you're going to want to get, Crimson Killers, Black Orc units, even some cavalry as they come in. You're going to want to lay on the fire with this thing. So that's the Hellblaster part of the name. And then the Hellblaster Gryph part. The Gryph part is because you want to bring two Demigryph Knights. You can kind of play it a little bit differently. So what I've brought here is two Demigryph Knights with halberds. But you could do, two with just the regular kinds, which are more anti-infantry. These are going to be more anti-large. Depends on the matchup here. As me fighting against the Greenskins, I was worried about some Arachnorok spiders and stuff being thrown into the mix to run of my troops. And so I wanted a quick reaction with these halberds to take them out. And they'll do okay on the charge against infantry anyways. So yeah, that's kind of the core, so you can swap it in and out. The rest of my force, like I said, does kind of play to the strengths of the Empire's somewhat elite units. So I have, where is it? Yeah, so two great swords, and they're going to be standing strong next to two swordsmen. Swordsman here just to add a little bit of width to my formation. And then this is going to be also key for your build. The Hellblaster wants to be firing the entire time because it gets you a lot of value. So what you want to do is have at least one or two unbreakable units. So for me it's going to be the Flagellants and then Sigmar's Sons. What I can do is I can stick them up in combat, force the enemy to just fight down to the last of my men. All the while I'll be firing away with the Hellblaster volley gun. So that's what's going on there. So the core here. And then you're going to want to start to get some early action. So I have some Outriders with grenade launchers, a good pick against the Greenskins who will have, goblins and other clustered up units without the best of armor. So these guys are going to be having all sorts of damage that you can put onto the enemy. I also brought an Amber Wizard here. And he is going to have Flock of Doom, so I can pop that off on the enemy. Once they get clusters thrown into battle, swarming around my men, I can just pop a bunch of Flock of Doom and really drop their health. So yeah, that's the engagement that you're seeing here. And you can see the enemy really wants to push forward with its cavalry corps, but that Hellblaster is just going to be putting on the pain, and he really can't get close. Those Demigryph Knights that are going to be watching over them, I mean, yeah, he can't get anywhere near me. And if he retreats, well then you can see I still have a good amount of range covering this, so he is basically doomed here to either commit these guys or keep them far enough of the fight where they won't do any damage. And if he yields the ground to me, then I can just come in with my Outriders and I can start peppering his main line. So things are going pretty good. My Hellblaster continuing to fire. Boris putting in the pretty good amount of damage here. And yeah, gonna stick the halberds in the mix. They're going to start to drop health, circled as they are by these units, but I've gotten them to rout, terror from these units, and then Sigmar's Son also going to be thrown in the center. And then keeping out on the middle here, these grenade launchers are just going to tear through these goblins. They're going to be trailing blood behind them. Oh my god, exploding bodies everywhere. And then as they push up, keep an eye on this. I have now found my priority targets. The first one is going to be this Orc Boys. I'm softening them up, and then I should here soon reprioritize targets to these Crimson Killers and take out those elite units. But I'm cleaning up everything that gets at this Hellblaster, properly defending it, and I even have some great swords held in reserve. My front line here is going to be staggered a little bit ahead. And yeah, now I'm going to throw in my Flagellants to try and tie down as much stuff in the center as I can. And then, again, guarding my flanks with swordsmen. And we'll see where things go. So yeah, helped a bit by the terrain in the sense that it's guarding my left flank. But look at this, everything being funneled into the middle here. And with this build, you want to stay mobile. Pull back your units with your cavalry. Allow your grenade launchers to get as much damage done. This is all free kills here. And then send in your tar pits when the time is right. Maybe reinforce with a great sword or two. And that is just going to tie down the center. Again, all of that is going to be meant to guard the Hellblasters. as they're engaged, there are going to be all sorts of abilities popped to drive down the combat effectiveness of the enemy. And then over here, the Crimson Killers are finally wading into the fight. But I'm going to pit them against these Sigmar Suns, which aren't going to break. Great swords with armor piercing, and we've been getting on a lot of damage. And the Hellblaster here going to be able to fire up and over my men. Let's see if we can't see a volley of it coming in. So these Crimson Killers are normally going to make mincemeat of my guys, but I think as we reload here, should be able to kill them. My guys may be having their line of sight blocked. All kinds of crazy stuff here being pumped. Yeah, Wah to buff him up, Soul Blight to drain my armor. So he's doing everything he can to get my guys out of the fight, but the Sigmar Suns here, unbreakable, plus the Great Sword's just enough to hold out that flank. And the center, concentrated fire, and especially Boris, mounted as he is going to be very mobile, and so you can send him in to break these chunks of units to rebuff areas like this. So I'm winning out in the center, forcing back Azog the Slaughterer, and yeah, holding the flanks. He has a lot of numbers, but again, I'm just playing the delay game. I'm staggering troops, throwing the swordsmen, and just everything in layers. And of course, Demigryph Knights with halberds have been kind of poking around, so they fought this battle on the left-hand side to take out the cavalry. They're going to come back and hit these Crimson Killers again, even up that fight, and then the other one is just lurking in the background. So with your demis, you can use them offensively, if your enemy has exposed units and they're not braced, maybe get an opportunistic strike and knock them out. So for instance here, I don't see much opposition. I could go out, venture out, and maybe knock about these archers. But for now, they're best used in my rear line. I'm still gaining a ton of kills with these Hellblaster volley guns. So my demis and other units are best used just lurking around the back, keeping everything at bay, and allowing the Hellblaster to do its work. So again, it's in the name, the Hellblaster Gryph. You want to use them both in tandem. And God, with the grenade launcher as well, they can pulverize anything. So these riders, which are typically very hard to run down, here have been forced to, kind of stand in the line of fire and not able to get much done, just being torn to pieces. So I'm really liking this little build that I've been able to put together. And then of course, if the enemy can't contest you in the air, there with the Flock of Doom is going to help you rout units, put a lot of damage on the board. And yeah, he's flying around, taking a lot of fire, baiting out some blows from the arrows, etc. So pretty good. And look at this, the Outriders, the grenade launchers are excellent. You don't have to waste a Demigryph Knight running all the way to knock these guys out. A single volley takes them out by like a third, and then here comes the second volley, and they should be ready to rout. So these guys are nice. They can sit just behind your main line, and yeah, no need to venture out with your cavalry. Keep your cavalry safe, and those Outriders are just going to blast through any formation. So I found that this build was really, really high value. Let's zoom in here across the battlefield as I start to now finally sally out, coming out of my little defensive position, and we're going to start running down the opposition. And I still have a lot of guys up and running. Sigmar Suns and the Great Swords being a good combo. And yeah, even these Black Orcs, which would otherwise do tons of damage, you always have to have an answer. So finally they did churn through my swordsmen, but I just needed to buy enough time to allow Boris to come back in. He can perhaps even the odds a bit with these Black Orcs, and then eventually free up my Demigryph Knights with halberds to perhaps knock about these chariots, and then eventually get back in and knock out these Black Orcs. So yeah, it's very, very closely fought. In the center, all kinds of stuff being popped on my guys. Azog really hoping to rout this big blob of infantry, but again, bringing these unbreakable units is going to be enough to tarp it, which is going to be great, and I should be able to bring my Lord over here to snipe him pretty soon. It's going to be a big benefit. So there he goes. He takes to the skies. Yeah, looks like I just wanted to rout that. I was taking a bit too much damage against these Black Orcs. Oh man, and in the late game, actually having this Hellblaster alive and running uncontested is absolutely great. I can pretty much not put anything on this flank, and the Hellblaster can shut it down. It can then pivot back around and probably hit these Black Orcs when I need it to. But for now, I have enough troops to spare to just run everyone off the battlefield. Let's watch that. Ooh, hitting one of those guys. And there you go. So it looks like the Black Orcs here finally cracked repeated blows with the demis. So that was all pretty awesome. So that's a little bit of an introduction of how this build plays out. I'm going to boot up another replay with a similar composition, just so you can see a bit more of it in the quick battles. And yeah, this battle was fun. You can see how you might want to tune it a little bit depending on which faction you're playing at. So here against the Greenskins, the Outriders with grenade launchers is a nice pick. Demis with halberds are pretty safe in case arachnarch spiders come at you, and then the Amber Wizard there with Flock of Doom is going to be great against the enemy who is going to blob up. But yeah, let's pivot over to that second replay. Alright, here we are in the second battle. This time I'm facing off against the High Elves. So what did I do to tailor my build a little bit differently? Well, I am having these demis, still, you know, Hellblaster at the core with 2 demis. This time I downgraded one of them to just a regular Demigryph Knight. They are more anti-infantry as opposed to the halberds. So the reason I did that is because, well, the only real large target that the enemy is going to be bringing to bear is going to be a dragon. So, but not too much more. So I figured, okay, one Demigryph Knight with halberd is going to be enough. And the other one I want more focused on being anti-infantry, because this is exactly what I feared, a big core of white lines of Trace. And then look at that, backed up by archers. You have Mage with the Lore of Shadows, Lore Master of Hoeth to get some healing off. You have Tyrion as well mounted on his cavalry, so he can hunt down a lot of my units. So this is a pretty scary army composition. Normally it should be very cost effective, but we'll see how my army handles this. The rest of the build is very similar. So the Hellblaster anchored here on the right hand flank. And then the composition alternating between great swords and swordsmen. Up front I have my unbreakable units, and they're going to be my tar pits set up front to catch as many units as possible, buy more time for the Hellblaster, and then the right hand side again anchored with unbreakable units over in the woods, so that if the archers come and pressure too far or too much, I'll have a little bit of cover. And then of course these Demigryph Knights to launch out against anything that gets over eager coming after these Hellblasters. I can hopefully get an opportunistic strike against them. On the left-hand flank, I'm going to be pushing pretty hard. Going to try and, you know, as the enemy's attention is going to be drawn towards that Hellblaster, I want to perhaps use that as an opportunity to flank around the side and hit these guys hard, start picking away at them. So that's what I've got here. Outriders with grenade launchers again. Mostly, you know, explosives are good against lightly armored units, so not necessarily meant to get the white lines of Trace, but more so to try, to try and take out these archer clusters. And yeah, we'll see how this goes. Like I said, this is a pretty cost-effective enemy build, and again, the Amber Wizard. So we'll see how this pans out. I have to be a little bit careful not to get too close to quick of an engagement. I mean, with 6 of those white lines, that'll easily take out my 4 core infantry, as well as those 3 archers. They could take out my lord, or at least put on a lot of damage. But you'll notice that first volley of Hellblasters, my god, it's going to start to take out those white lines pretty handily. So knowing that this is a real threat, my enemy is going to start to overreact. He's going to send in Tyrion charging in here. So this is where I'm going to activate my unbreakable units. And then I'm going to charge in with my demis. So he was hoping to get a quick snipe on this, but luckily I have the ability to swarm the Lord. And now this is pretty deadly. So yes, he may have the ability to take out my artillery, but this is a dangerous gamut to throw your lord in like this. Ooh, and he had this penumbral pendulum. He tried to get on my massive infantry. I reacted quickly enough, and so I dodged them just out of line. You got to be very careful of that. That could have taken out a large number of my troops. But anyway, Tyrion is forced to back off the Hellblaster, saying that doesn't matter. It's going to be firing point blank into these guys. And then again, fearing the collapse of this army into my guys, I'm just going to go ahead and send in my flagellants, and I still have another unbreakable unit to hold the flank. Meanwhile, on this side, I'm sweeping around, gaining the ground. Outriders did get an initial blow against these white lines, and even though they're better against, you know, unarmored targets, it's still going to start to pick away at their health. Oh, and here comes a breath spell. Again, I'm being quick on my micro there, kind of baiting those out. So really doing a good job of wasting the mana there, or sorry, winds of magic. And there you go. This is why you bring these unbreakable units. A single unit here is literally holding back a lord and the entire enemy army, forcing it to take volley after volley. He casts a, what is that, Pit of Shades or something, I can't remember. Tries to break some units, but it's baited on some swordsmen here, and again, doing very little damage. Now I'm in the back lines, and these Outriders can ride roughshod. That's like 45% damage on those archers, and then I can perhaps feign an attack, and just doing everything to pull his guys out of position, pull them out of supporting the main line. His lord has once again been tossed in, but with the floating around Amber Wizard here, he has some fire spells that he can get, there's like a magic missile, and I keep trying to ping that onto Tyrion, as well as having some curses. Okay, there's that missile. Let's see if it lands. Yeah, so taking a little bit of a chunk out, I'm reducing his speed, reducing his melee attack, and just going to try and tar pit him in, and then I'm going to send in some other units. Once these guys come in, I can perhaps pull back my Hellblaster, and you'll notice, again, the right-hand side, he runs into this forest, realizes that I have unbreakable units, tries to shoot them with archers, but not getting much value out of that, and they do have shields, so they'll hold out. And meanwhile, I've pulled back with the value of my composition here, and allowing my skirmishing to continue. With all of his archers turning about, I am starting to take a fair amount of damage on these outriders. They are routing, they should come back, but at this point they're a bit of a distraction, which is fine. And take a look at this, I have managed to shark one of his units here, and this is where you can afford to be a bit aggressive with your demis. A little big strike here if they're unsupported by the spears, might as well. And take a look at this, Tyrion got a bit too overzealous in that mix. He got charged by, well, first my Amber Wizard was floating overhead, getting debuffs, getting the magic missile, then the demis in here, then Boris as well to charge in. All of that burst damage bringing Tyrion super far down, and this is great before even the Elven army has come into contact with me. And then over on this right hand side, it's going to be pretty bad for my swordsmen right off the bat. They're dropping so quick, but their only goal here is to tie down the enemy again. So being very careful about where you place these unbreakable units is going to be key to your strategy. And then finally in the back, I'm going to start to commit a couple more units in here. Not necessary to put all of them at once. I want to keep some units free, allow me to do a little bit of a delay. And then over here, keeping these Demigryph Knights with halberds, just floating around, maybe do another strike here, and yeah, just wait. So I'm doing a slow deconstruction of the enemy, and then making sure that I focus down Tyrion there. That's going to be key for my build. Pretty glorious. Yeah, Loremaster there popping all sorts of abilities. He has a couple units that are going to try and pin down Boris. The archers are going to try and switch targets over to him. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to send over the Emperor Wizard just to shut them down. I have the grenade launchers coming back, so his backline is completely unprotected. And take a look at this. Now I can send everyone forth. Great swords, which would otherwise trade perhaps with these white lines, are now going to have a softened up target. So I will win that engagement. And then over here, just cleaning up his backlines. I can probably even take out his mage with the Lore of Shadows with these demis. So that is perhaps not the best of engagements for her. And I'll take that fight. And meanwhile in the center, he's overcommitted so many units. 3 units against Sigmar's sons. And that's fine. It's buying me time. And again, that Amber Wizard, so much value. Flock of Doom, going to be bringing down the health of all of these blobbed units. You want to force your enemy to blob up, and you get a lot of value there. So the Flock of Doom I found is always going to be good. If you overcast it, you can put on a world of hurt to your enemy. And I've got a pretty stable core here with the Demigryph Knights thrown in the mix as well with anti-infantry. Going to be doing a good job of holding this all up, and then keep an eye on this. More demis. I only have 2 of them on the field, but they're getting tons of value and charging into the rear as they are. Yeah, this is excellent. And meanwhile, I was able to exfiltrate my Hellblaster, and it's now going to start to fire into this blob of men in the rear. I've somewhat cleaned up the enemy, and here I'm going to disengage, but it looks like I've been able to draw away so much attention on my guys. Just this Hellblaster crew. Don't know if they'll get one last volley. Yikes, it looks like they're going to get charged. Oh my god, a dual decapitation on my guys. So okay, they finally managed to take it out, but you saw, you know, it got a fair amount of damage, and it still is. It softened up the core, and especially what it did is it drew the enemy into my trap in the center, allowed me to dictate the pace of the battle, forced the enemy to come to me, whereas with all of his archers, he could have dictated the pace of battle. So, you know, it has a lot more value than just its kills. The way it manipulates the battlefield is really key. And then, yeah, the way I'm deconstructing the enemy force here are going to be excellent. Still holding strong, and most crucially, great swords in the swordsman unit still at very, very good health. In the back lines, he has archers, but they're completely disentangled, so the Amber Wizard is going to pop between coming over here to do some spells, and then coming over here to silence these archers. The greatswords are going to be coming back, hopefully in time to save my massive men. And we'll see. And meanwhile, demis are circling about. Oh, it looks like they have crushed some of that crew. Right here they come, another brutal charge. Man, dude's being kicked left and right. And this is perhaps where, for your build, you may want to perhaps put a little bit of Lore of Life in instead of the Amber Wizard. Could be doing a lot of healing on these Demigryph Knights. But this is pretty devastating for both of us. A lot of our units in the mix here are going to be routing. God, this is brutal. He has a couple white lines on good health, but the rest are finally going to be crumbling. This Lore Master, though, is going to be a key part of his build. He is going to be taking down Empire troops left and right, and he has some healing capabilities. So I got to be very careful there. I think what I decide to do is regroup, and the archers are putting in so much damage to my now exposed greatswords in the back. They came in to get a bit of a sandwich, but because they have these, dual-handed weapons, they have no shields, so they're going to be pincushions to those archers. I really need something to shut them down, but unfortunately, I've lost a lot of my mobility, so at this point, it looks like I'm going to start routing. Unfortunately, I had sent Boris after Tyrion. This was perhaps not the best thing. I should have sent my Amber Wizard, but essentially I needed a Lord to escort Tyrion off the battlefield. I really did not want him coming back. So yeah, that is why you see Boris so far disengaged. Again, like I said, it probably would have been better to send the Amber Wizard over there just to keep harassing him and seeing him off. Boris would have been better to land hammer and anvils, but at least now he's coming back to the battlefield, and being disengaged as he was, he has now gotten back up to full health with his regenerative healing. Meanwhile, over here, my otherwise high health greatswords are going to be taken down a notch. In the center, I leave my Flagellant unit, which has just 8 men left, to hold down the enemy. And then meanwhile, my other units that are retreating are going to be covered in their retreat by these demis. And I'm going to seek to regroup. I have isolated this mage with the Lore of Shadows, which is pretty good for me. A nice little pickup. I need to take out more and more lords because their main lord has been taken out, and I can hopefully take out another. It should be a pretty good kind of morale penalty against the enemy. Ooh, and there she goes. So now this is going to be the cue for me to pull back. Seeing this little win, my guys are going to rally, and I'm going to threaten this force here. Feign a charge. And all I want to do here is just pull out of range of his archers, regroup, rally my men, and then perhaps see how we want to engage. And again, having these tar pit units that are unbreakable is key. Holding down to last, holding back this massive men. Just 2 of them left, but going to be really critical. And there he goes. Now we're going to reform our line. Boris circling overhead. The 2 demis still with a lot of models left on them, but really, really low health, so I got to be careful. I do get a nice strike against this Lore Master, doubling down with Boris. Deadly Onslaught popped as well. Because he's unsupported, I wanted to get as much burst damage. And then here, as the rest of his force comes plowing through, they're going to try and take out my Lord, and that's where I come in with the demis. And I'm doing hammer and anvils as best I can. But the more I sit here, the more those archers are going to be doing damage. So I'm going to have to force Boris through that fight. And these demis, like I said, lots of unit models, but very low health. So the armor piercing on those white lines is going to be doing a ton of damage. So now I'm going to swap out for my swordsman, see if I can contest this. I'm really close to taking out that Lore Master. I have a lot of health, but you can see my infantry, my halberds, all sorts of stuff is crumbling, and the rear support of those archers is going to be very, very key to this battle. So I'm very, very nervous here. I'm down to pretty much just Boris. A couple of my men in the rear lines are going to start to rally, and his guys are teetering. I mean, you have a lot of white lines that are down to 15, 20 men apiece, and it's just going to be Boris tanking this out. So we'll see if he can hold long enough to inspire my men to come back to the battle. And with those sweeping blows, I mean, every swipe is taking out clusters of men. Should be enough to hopefully knock some of these guys out. And finally, it looks like his archers have kind of expended the last of their ammo, so that is a godsend for me. It means less damage over time against my guy. It means I can now step back and dodge a couple more of those volleys. And now, without that archer support, I get to control when we take this engagement, because I have the mobility, I have the big lord, I can disengage with my infantry, and then I can choose when I have those strikes. So this all of a sudden changes the dynamic. My men, who were otherwise routing, are going to see that the storm of arrows have let up. They see that their lord is rallying overhead, And now we're going to reform again, perhaps for the third time this fight, for a climactic battle. So the elite of the Empire here facing off against the elite of the Elves. And this is really cool. Yeah, having these archers out of ammo is absolutely key for me. It means Boris, with his super high health here, can just sit around and heal. And look at this. He's going to fly around, and I'm just going to go ahead and land on his most vulnerable of units. Get them to rout. And then just as everything starts to try and circle on me, I can go ahead and just trot on out of there. So slowly, bit by bit, I'm going to be deconstructing this force. One of those is terrified. Yeah, so I took out 2 with that chunk. And the more I'm left to my own devices, the more I'm going to do that. Over here, you know, my men are going to try and rest up. But it is a pretty thin force compared to the enemy's pretty big mass. So I'm going to fly overhead just to feign an attack. Keep his guys questioning where I'm coming. And what I want to do is perhaps time this appropriately. Where, yeah, I want to take this guy out and probably disrupt his formation. And just as I land, that's where I want to get my infantry in. So I get the charge off here. So this is going to be an even trade in terms of the charge. 26 men against 24 of his own. The charge will probably favor me, but it's going to be, I think we're going to obliterate each other. This is key. The disruption with Boris followed in with the charge of my guys is going to do a fair amount to dissipate his charge, especially get that lore master out of that initial battle. Is going to do a lot to buff up my infantry line, and this is what I need to hold out here. He's going to start to pop all sorts of abilities. Boris now is going to make a beeline for him, trying to single him out. And then now finally I have Boris engaged against the enemy lord. There aren't too many white lines surrounding him to take him down like we've seen previously. My infantry are going to be doing that. So this is going to be really, really key for me. And yeah, Boris just having the ability to regen his health and get back to fully topped off is going to be key. But he is cracking my guys. The Greatsword's still standing, 1 man left, 21 in that unit, and it looks like that's finally been enough to break these white lines. They're going to peel off and rout. Archer's also routing, and with that, the Lore Master goes away. So that was a freaking fantastic battle. Again, it looks like the this Hellblaster Gryph build worked pretty well. A lot of value from the different units. I really like the composition. Very flexible, and you saw, I think this was a good testament to how it plays out. The enemy had, you know, a full core, what was it, like 5 white lines with the Lord Master of Hoeth, Tyrion, and then archers and spearmen. That's a pretty hard counter to a lot of what Empire can bring, and I think it fared, I mean, it was still on a knife's edge, but I think my build fared pretty well. The enemy probably could have beaten me if he'd spread out a couple of his units and not clumped up so many on my Unbreakable. Just dedicate a single white lines to take out the Sigmar Sons here, and with the rest, just take the time to walk around, and then he could have swarmed my my guys a little bit better. But you know, as grouped up as he was, that really gave the advantage to me because it meant that I could get Flock of Doom off on his guys. It meant that with his troop concentrations, there was a lot of openings for demis to come and hit, you know, guys over here to circle around and hit them in the back, to do hammer and anvils, to get outriders with grenade launchers into the archers. So yeah, that was the downside of a lot of the clustering that he had going on. It opened up the floor for me to get those value strikes on, and that's what really eventually added up, you know, the kill count and evened it up to the point where finally my just 2 greatsword units and 2 state troop swordsmen could get the job done. But it was a close run affair. Anyway, let's end the replay and take a look at some of those final stats. So yeah, a lot of kills on his white lines, fair amount on his archers, lots of kills across the board. On my side, yeah, great swords getting a lot of benefit. Demi's doing pretty well. This one with 2 chefs for killing a pair of lords, getting a fair amount of white lion damage done, and then the Emperor Wizard, just a lot of good support. His magic missile didn't do quite as much as I would have liked. I have found value with it before, but this time, I mean, it plucked a little bit away at Tyrion. But yeah, it was mostly the debuffs that I think really brought me value. And look at this, Boris ending off, closing off that battle with a lot of health. His ability, I believe, to terrify forces is key, especially in the late game, so he was critical. So yeah, again, another victory with this build. I'll be continuing to play it, maybe see if we can have some different variants on it in the future. But let me know how it fares for you if you bring it out into the multiplayer scene. Anyways, that's it for this series of battles. Hope you guys enjoyed. Stay tuned for more, and enjoy the Hellblaster Gryph. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.